Welcome to Helpful Humans, the podcast about people who are creating good in our world by helping and empowering others. I'm Kim Drobes, and I'm honored to share these stories with you. They get to the heart of who we are as human beings while exploring our inherent desire to make a difference.
Moving is a very stressful time in people's lives. They're thinking about a lot of different things. And what we found was when people were moving, they threw away all sorts of stuff. Food is being left in the trash. It's being left in the pantry. It's something that you don't think about because of all of the other craziness going on with the move. And we were just trying to do something good. We saw people throwing away food. We picked the food up. We were there anyway as movers, and we brought it to our local food bank. It was really there where I learned about food insecurity and hunger for the first time.
That's Adam Lowy, Executive Director and founder of Move for Hunger, and he's talking about his aha moment, the day he realized that as the owner of a moving company, he could start connecting food that might otherwise be wasted with people who are desperately in need of that food. It's no joke to say that Adam grew up in the moving industry. His great-grandfather started Lowy's Moving almost 100 years ago, and they've operated as a well-respected moving company ever since. Working as a mover, it didn't take long for Adam to start seeing a pattern of abandoned food during the moves. But it was that first trip to the food bank that really opened his eyes to the issue of food insecurity, and he knew that he was onto something that could really make a difference, just by asking the simple question, may we take your leftover food to the food bank for you?
So I was excited, right? So we collected 300 pounds of food in our first month from doing nothing more than asking a question. You know, there was no Move for Hunger. There was no fancy website or marketing materials or anything like that. We just realized that when you give people easy opportunities to take action, they will. And we brought the food to the food bank. I'd never visited my food bank before. And it wasn't too far away. I'm from Monmouth County, New Jersey, and you don't see a lot of poverty or homelessness or any of the stereotypes that you would typically relate to food insecurity, which I've obviously learned that is not, who is actually struggling as a whole. It's our friends, it's our neighbors, it's our community members. I mean, there are people everywhere in every community that are affected by hunger. And when I took the tour of my food bank with that food, it really kind of stopped me in my tracks because hunger was a problem. Really, that was something that was far away, if you will, different country. Maybe it was something in New York or LA or Chicago, but I hadn't seen it before. Therefore, it wasn't part of my world. But when I learned really how localized it was, it became part of my world. And I actually got a little bit angry that I'd lived here my entire life and no one had told me about this before. So education became a really important part of what we were doing. We needed to let people understand that, there's 54 million Americans struggling with hunger. They don't have enough to eat. And at the same time, the United States wastes 40% of the food it produces. So it's not like we don't have enough food to feed everybody. It's that we're throwing a lot of it in the trash. We're not thinking strategically about our food system to ensure that the right food is in the right places. It costs the right price to be able to get people the healthy, nutritious food they truly need.
Once Adam started to really think strategically about things, he realized that the entire moving industry could get involved to create some real change. And it wasn't really a hard sell either. The moving industry tends to be very community-minded by nature, and adding a service that could help others was an easy slam dunk.
I grew up watching my dad and my uncles be incredibly community-minded and charitable, donating boxes or warehouse space or, moving things for the community whenever they could. And if you look at a lot of the moving industry, you'll see a lot of family-owned businesses, second generation, third generation, fourth generation like ourselves and more, that have been in this for a long time. And you've got to have that connection to community. I think what Move for Hunger really did was put the pieces together in an easy way to make it simple for people to act. You had moving companies going into people's homes each and every day. And you saw that this was actually a need that the customer was asking for, maybe in not so many words. So we kind of flipped the script a little bit and said, you know what, this is a service now that moving companies can provide for individuals, for their customers. And when you provide better service, you ultimately have happier customers. And if you can do that in a way that is not only driving your business, but also helping feed your community, that's a win-win. We've since expanded to work with relocation management companies and multifamily apartment communities and temp housing providers and really other aspects of the broader industry itself. But I think as you kind of go through any industry, really, it's made up of people. And I was very fortunate to not only have grown up in this space, but also now to be able to know so many of these individuals and companies and call them my friends. At this point, we have more than 1,000 moving companies working with us across all 50 states and Canada. We're working with more than 1,200 apartment communities. We're working with the leading names in relocation, every major moving van line and state and trade association that kind of comes into it as well. So at this point, I think, you want to do this because this is the thing that our industry is doing. But when we got started, I was really trying to reinforce that initial message. Doing good is good for business. The more business you get, the more people that you can help. And more importantly, doing good doesn't need to be something extra. I think one of the core strengths of Move for Hunger has been we've been able to really change the way companies work. So when you adapt a process in ways that doesn't create the extra work, doesn't create the extra cost, but only provides value, of course you're going to do this. I think the hardest thing for most companies is getting started because maybe many hadn't done this before. But the response from the customers, the response from the employees has been incredible. And at the end of the day, we've been able to provide more than 18 million meals to individuals across the US and Canada.
18 million meals. And so many more to come as Move for Hunger has expanded past their original model. After the break, we'll hear about the ways Move for Hunger found to get people involved even if they're not planning on hiring a mover.
Hi, this is Sean, one of the producers here on Helpful Humans. If you're looking for more inspiring stories that highlight community and human connection, then check out our sister podcast, Rochambeau. Rochambeau is the podcast about the world's most unique competitions and the amazing competitors that make them happen. With stories that celebrate both the quirky and the crazy, including barstool ski racing, competitive air guitar, and the search for the world's ugliest dog, Rochambeau is really fun, lighthearted, and always interesting. That's Rochambeau, spelt Roshambo. Listen and subscribe today on your favorite podcast provider.
Adam knew that a large percentage of people don't hire a professional when they move, but he had a hunch that those same people would also love an easy way to help fight hunger.
74% of people move without a moving company, which is why we started to get apartment communities involved. So if you are living in any of the 1,000+ properties that we work with, when you move out, the property will provide you a food collection bag. You can put your food in there, and then it'll get picked up and delivered to a local food bank in that community as well. The cool thing across all of our programs is the food always stays local. So it's not like we're shipping it all across the country or overseas. If we're collecting food in San Diego, it stays in San Diego. Chicago, it stays in Chicago, et cetera. But beyond just donating your food when you move, because we know that can't be the only way that we're able to collect food. We're really looking at leveraging transportation resources. And if you talk to most of the food banks and pantries in this country, they'll tell you that one of their bigger challenges is actually transportation, getting the food in the door, getting the food out the door to emergency feeding sites, thinking about how we recover and rescue food from farms and from CPG companies and from grocery stores, thinking about just all of the ways that transportation plays a role in our food system. And what we've done is build this national, international, if you include Canada, this network of transportation professionals who are donating their time and services to make sure that the right resources are in the right place at the right times. And that can happen in the way of donating food when you move, happen in the way of food drives. We organized more than 1,000 food drives in 2019. 2020 was a little bit down, but hey, we were in a pandemic. In a food drive, could be a young person organizing a food drive, with their school, or a company organizing something with their employees. Our goal is to make it really easy for individuals to be able to organize food drives where we can do that heavy lifting and provide the know-how. Additionally, we are working with companies that might have bulk food donations. Kraft Foods, Sodexo, they had a lot of extra food during the pandemic that they needed to do something with before it expired. We made sure that food was able to be delivered. And now we're exploring even how we're able to capture more fresh food by working with freight and logistics companies who have refrigerated trucks to make sure less of that food goes to waste as well. So we're absolutely doing more than just getting people to donate their food when they move. It really is about leveraging and mobilizing these transportation resources for good.
Nowadays, Move for Hunger has an enormous reach, and their systems are well established and successful. But then, 2020 and the pandemic, and suddenly the need for food skyrocketed, while at the same time the number of people moving dropped significantly. So Adam and his team had to figure out ways to pivot.
March came along, the world stopped, and we kind of went into a little bit of a panic. We're seeing this need increase dramatically. Pre-pandemic, there were 37 million Americans struggling with food insecurity. The number is now 54 million Americans. Food banks were seeing people visit their doors in numbers like never before. Many of the people visiting food banks were doing so for the very first time in their lives. So we knew the need was there. At the same time, we were fortunate that, the industries that we worked in were necessary services. So they did not shut our doors. Some of them got a little bit slower because not everyone was moving in the beginning of the pandemic. But that was an opportunity for our network to step up. Above and beyond our expectations. We had some companies that were helping with weekly distributions from the food bank to emergency feeding sites. Because of all the kids that were out of school, they had to set up a number of different places where students or young people in particular would be able to get food. We saw food drives eventually when things became safe again. We saw an increase in our safe and socially distant front porch food drive, which was a new campaign we launched this year. We saw companies reaching out to us that had maybe planned for different events and orders and had all this excess and aging inventory that they needed to donate before it went to waste. And they were able to do that through Move for Hunger. So while we started out, maybe a little bit panicked in March, I am really pleased to say that we had our most impactful year to date, delivering more than 5 million pounds of food in a single year, providing more than 4 million meals, about a quarter of everything we've done over the last 11 years combined. So yes, it was busy. It was a little bit crazy. We had to get creative. We had to adapt. We collected more fresh food as we began working with more farmers and grocers and gleaning organizations and collaborating on that front. But I think that's part of the nature of being in the nonprofit space, right? You have to adapt. You have to innovate.
Talking to Adam, I could hear the joy in his voice, and I loved his infectious excitement surrounding Move for Hunger. He's a great example of someone doing what they love while purposefully making a genuine difference in the world.
I get to wake up every day and think about creative ways to help people. Selfishly, I think it's, the most fun job somebody could have. I know we're working on really serious issues, food insecurity and food waste, and I do not make light of that at all. But at the same time, my goal is to get people excited about making a difference, letting people understand that you don't need to start an organization. You don't need to do all of these things. You can do a little bit every day. Little tiny changes actually come together to create huge change. Hunger and food waste should not be problems that the US or really any other nation faces, especially today. It's solvable. We can do this, but we have to do it together. If you want to get involved, if you want to take action, visit the website, moveforhunger.org. You can donate, you can start a food drive, you can find a mover, you can start a fundraiser. There's a number of ways you can take action, and all of that information is on our website, moveforhunger.org.
Thanks so much for sharing part of your day with us and for listening to this Helpful Humans episode. If you enjoy the podcast, please consider giving us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Theme music for Helpful Humans is provided by the amazing K. Michelle Dubois. Check out all of Michelle's latest offerings on her website at kmichelledubois.com. Follow us on Facebook at Helpful Humans Podcast, where you can see updates to stories that we've covered and perhaps suggest a story of your own. Thanks for listening.